This early morning, let's explore an excerpt from Thich Nhat Hanh's Breathe, You Are Alive. And then let's meditate. Whoopsie, I look like Kilroy, don't I? Here we go. Now I'm doing the full Kilroy. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is brought to you by the kind folks who support this channel on Patreon. This early morning, we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars, and you wish to meditate as profoundly as Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo, be sure to subscribe. Ring that notification bell. Good news! If at any time during this early morning's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, all you gotta do is type that question in great detail in a chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. And I'll be delighted to answer it for you. Breathing is a means of awakening and maintaining full attention in order to look carefully, long and deeply, see the nature of all things and practice at liberation. Every time you see a word in italics, that's me adapting the text. Every time you see something in italics and brackets, that's me adding something to the text or amplifying the text. I do not tell you this to boast, but because I merely do not wish to deceive you or confuse you. The sutra on the full awareness of breathing is the Buddha's way to help us to remember to breathe and to enjoy our breath. When you breathe in slowly, mindfully, you can enjoy your in-breath. Just breathing in can make you very happy. Allow yourself to be happy while breathing in. You know that many people have a stuffed nose. They do not enjoy their in-breath very much. So if you are able to breathe freely, that is already something. You know that breathing out freely helps release toxins, and that is something wonderful and healthy. For us who enjoy breathing in and out, this is already the practice of peace and happiness. Peace and happiness are already there inside of you and around you. Wrong button. Let's see, let's tap button 9. Oh, welcome aboard to this early morning's live stream. Good news. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, simply type that question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. I'll be happy to answer that question for you. Today's practice is an adaptation of the Buddha's most famous and most concise meditation manual, the Anapanasati Sutta. Excuse me. So, I got to share with you something controversial, very controversial. We're going to start off with something moderately controversial. I live down the highway from a major university, California Institute of Technology, or Caltech. It's the West Coast equivalent of MIT. It's been mentioned by our friend Carl Sagan in his television series from the 70s, Cosmos. There are not all, but there are many people who both teach and attend this university, who are atheists, or at least agnostics. Now, these are very educated people. These are not contrarians. These are people who have read a lot and thought a lot and written a lot of peer-reviewed stuff, and so they know their way around academia. And what these people agree is that more than 100 years elapsed between the death of Christ and the writing of the Gospels, which undermines their literary credibility, their academic credibility. They go from eyewitnesses to accounts of hearsay. Not everyone agrees with them, but many people consider it. Now that's controversial. Brace yourself for something very controversial. The same thing can be said about Buddhism, except for one thing. It wasn't 1 century that separates the death of the Buddha from the penning of the writings that claimed to be his own discourses. It wasn't a century. It was 5 centuries. And when you look carefully at the vast array of writings that purport to be his writings, you see different literary styles, you see different philosophies, you see different techniques. You see different cultural influences. Some you see Indian influences, some you see Chinese influences. Sometimes you see Buddhist influences, sometimes you see Hindu influences, sometimes you see Taoist influences. It doesn't take a Nobel laureate to say, there appeared to me more than one author at work here. Therefore, since they're not all attributed to one person, they could be taken with a grain of salt. And now for some more controversy. The Buddha may have been the fully enlightened one, and that would be cool. The Buddha might have been, Buddha might have been an avatar of Vishnu, a god on earth, like many Hindus believe. That would be lovely. The Buddha might be a man of flesh, blood, and bone who mastered the path of enlightenment. That could still be cool. The Buddha might not have existed at all. He might have just been an archetype. And that could also be useful. So, if we don't know if the Buddha existed, or how he existed, and we don't know what the Buddha taught, how are we to practice? Anybody who's spent serious time reading scriptures, whether they are Taoist or Buddhist or Hindu or Christian or Jewish, has learned that language is symbolic. And we don't translate, a word-for-word translation is sketchy at best, especially because everybody who writes a dictionary has their own cultural and spiritual and linguistic influences. And those influences change all the time. Excuse me. And so even in the most simple of sentences, handling the most simple of concepts, the idea, the probability of miscommunication grows geometrically with every passing generation and every translation. Now you could throw your hands in the air and say, well, good grief, Lama Jigme, thanks for the good news. So there is good news. How are we to know which teaching to rely on? Simple. Just like a DJ might take a sample of another record and add it to one record and add it to another record. I think they call it a hook. We can receive a technique. We can practice that technique. maybe 5 minutes every 12 hours. And we can do that for 7 consecutive days. Then that might sound daunting, but this just means practicing, for example, at 6 a.m. and then 6 p.m. for 5 minutes a pop for a week. And then sit back and analyze your results. Over that week, has your peace increased or decreased? Has your joy increased or decreased? Has your love increased or decreased? That's it. Some people would call this the quasi-scientific method or the proto-scientific method. But take action, notice your results. Based on the results, reevaluate your course of action. That is if anything, that is the basis or the starting point of the scientific method. So you can look up 5 different English translations of the Anapanasati Sutta and see different verbiage. These people aren't lying, they're doing their best, but it doesn't mean it's perfect. You can look up a bunch of different commentaries and see that most of them are using a translation created by, I think, a dead Englishman or a dead German many decades ago. It may be good, but is it perfect? I've never met a perfect translation. And you speak to a real translator, someone who does it for a living, someone who's studied many languages, they'll tell you that language is a dodgy thing at best. Oh, excuse me, I am Captain Mucus right now. Okay, so when playing with translation, it is a mistake to say, what is? Yes, let's go back to the Tao Te Ching. In Taoism, there are many different types of Taoism, and in each type of Taoism, there's a different way of using yang and yin, or yin and yang. In philosophical Buddhism, there's a very specific use of yin and yang. When we read the 81 poems of the Tao Te Ching, we see that the attributes of yang, patriarchy, are being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, competitive, and cruel. Whereas the attributes of yin, the attributes of true matriarchy, would be being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. Huge difference, is there not? Now, yes, no one can deny the popularity and widespread usage of patriarchy. Patriarchy can take us many places, but peace and fulfillment are not one of them. If we take a rigid view of the truth, we're on the path of patriarchy. If we take a pragmatic view of teachings and say, I'm going to play with these teachings and notice their results, then we're on the path of matriarchy, the path most likely to lead us to peace. Having said that, let's dig in. The basic outline of the Anapanasati Sutta is that it's 12 meditations followed by 4 contemplations. I like to begin with the 4 contemplations. I feel that they are a good first aid kit because sometimes we get scrambled, we get befuddled, we experience turmoil, sometimes circumstantially, sometimes physically, sometimes interpersonally, sometimes mentally. Sometimes we're just not our best self. And I found that these 4 contemplations are not esoteric, they're not mysterious. They help us when we are hot under the collar. Not that you've ever been, but I know the rest of us have. Excuse me. Whew, yucky. Okay, here we go. So we're going to begin with Dhammasati, or Anika Vipassanas, set of 4 impermanence contemplations to help us sustainably let go. Now you might say, dude, are you speaking in tongues? No, this is just words from a different language, the Pali language, a dead language now. And for some reason, many people feel that if it's written in Pali, it must be true. And that's just superstition. But one of my teachers was anti-superstitious, and he never taught us the Tibetan or Sanskrit or Pali words for anything. And later on, when we tried to converse with other people from other traditions, we were out to sea, and we lost all credibility. And that was a big bummer. So when possible, I like to share terminology, not because it's important to enlightenment, but it's important when dealing with trolls, and there are many trolls out there. Humanity has no dearth of trolls and gatekeepers. Ooh, shades of Wizard of Oz. Bullies and trolls and gatekeepers. Oh my. Okay. So, we're going to play with the first of 4 contemplations. Spiritual first aid. These 4 contemplations are formatted as rhetorical questions. By definition, our job is not to answer a rhetorical question, but to simply play with a rhetorical question silently and mentally in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation. The in-breath is short and sharp. The out-breath is longer and softer. Last night I woke with nightmares. I padded into the living room, sat on the couch, and played with these exercises. They worked splendidly. We come to our second of 4 opening contemplations. What? Now fading. Shakespeare was right. There are times when we endure the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Does exploring the impermanence of that which befalls us make it okay? No, it doesn't. It's still wrong. When people are cruel to us, that's wrong. But exploring how our bodies are always changing, our minds are always changing, our circumstances are always changing, the people populating those circumstances are always changing, the relationships between those people are always changing, makes it easier to let go. The profundity of change makes grasping an absurdity. Oh, I should have thrown a preposition in there. The profundity of change makes of grasping an absurdity. That's better. I think I'll jot that down. Bear with me. The profundity of impermanence makes of grasping an absurdity. Cowabunga. There have been times I've tried to apply these 4 contemplations to pain. The irony is, everything but the pain disappears. It's as if there's nothing in the universe but the pain. But the feeler of the pain seems to have faded away, and that's a good, that's better than a hole in the head, isn't it? We come now to our third of 4 opening contemplations. As we breathe in, we could silently and mentally recite what? As we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite now ceasing. This is a rhetorical question, so please don't try to answer it. Simply play with it in harmony with your inhalation and your exhalation and your relaxation. We come now to our fourth of 4 opening impermanence contemplations. So, in view of all this impermanence, the coarse, the subtle, and the very subtle impermanence, the conclusion is to kind of surrender. The fancy word for surrender is relinquish, which kind of reminds me of a funny line from Father of the Bride, when he was trying to use a command on a guard dog, but he didn't know the exact one. It's funnier in the watching than in the retelling. Anyway, so we're going to play with a rhetorical question. What now yielding? So we're using yield not in the agrarian sense, but in the tactical sense. And our inhalation is shorter and sharper. Our exhalation is longer and softer. And there is an open Q&A policy whenever you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or their application. Simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Where it will be promptly ignored, and then when stumbled upon, I will point at you and laugh. And now it's time for us to play with the 12 meditations of Anapanasati. The first 4 have their common denominator. Well, we continue with Kaya Sati's first set of 4 preliminary meditations that center on our bodies. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb calm. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite breathing long. This reminds us that long exhalations have a calming effect. Now, this is not an affirmation. This has nothing to do with belief. This does have everything to do with observation. If we build our spiritual path on the sand of faith, then when we are sufficiently exhausted, it'll slide into the sea. If we build our spiritual path on the bedrock of neuroscience, of relying intelligently upon each inhalation's access of the sympathetic nervous system and each exhalation's access of the parasympathetic nervous system, then as long as our body is functioning, as long as we are not brain dead, we will be able to practice the path. This is useful to remember, but the next time we feel somewhat agitated, the long exhalations can be calming. Now we're going to explore the opposite as we've come to the second set of 4 meditations. As we breathe in, we're going to silently and mentally recite the adjective short, and as we exhale, we're going to silently and mentally recite the verb energize, the hyphenated verb energize. This reminds us that our short inhalations can be energizing, which is useful the next time we feel drowsy during meditation. Now, I'm out of water, so I'll be right back. Please bear with me. Thank you for your patience. We come now to the third of 4 opening meditations. The focus of the past 2 meditations has been our breathing. We're now going to broaden our field of perception to include our body in its entirety. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb feel. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the object of perception, this body. And that's all we have to do. If all we do is play with these words, silently and mentally, in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation, oddly enough, it will have a profound effect. Working with the verb feel helps us to access something that would be described in Tantric Buddhism as heart bliss. And to my constant amusement, I love how all the techniques of every sect of Buddhism is found in every sect of Buddhism. It's sort of like fractals. When we take off the blinders of sectarianism and elitism, Or more, we are all much more alike than we are different. We come to the fourth and final meditation of our first set of meditations. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the noun form, which is a synonym for body. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the hyphenated verb relaxing. Doing so will give us what some might describe as coarse or very coarse tranquility. We come now to the final two sets of 4 meditations. What do they have in common? They explore the 8 jhanas. In this, we continue now with Vedana Sati's first set of 4 jhana meditations that center our feelings. And what you'll find is that there's nothing mysterious about jhana practice, or at least there need not be anything elitist or mysterious or frightening about jhana practice. We now come to the first of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the first jhana's blissful joy that flows from gently grinning with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes towards our bodies of flesh, blood, and bone. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb grin. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the object of our grinning, our to-body. We come to the second of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the second jhana's peaceful joy that flows from gently grinning with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes towards our thoughts, and we're using thought as an umbrella term, towards our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. Grin to these thoughts. So you don't have to do mental gymnastics. All you do is play with these words in harmony with your inhalation, exhalation, and relaxation. Everything will take care of itself. We come to the third of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the third jhana's contentment by mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. Feel these here thoughts. Now, you might say this word here is excessive, but it works better with the meter. We come to the fourth of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the fourth jhana's neutrality by allowing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining to tranquilly relax. As we breathe in, we can silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic noun thoughts. As we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite the hyphenated verb relaxing. Welcome to this early morning's live stream. Good news. Whenever you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them, simply type that question in great detail in the chat window, or it will be promptly ignored until I stumble upon it and then mock you. We continue with Chitta Sati's second and final set of 4 jhana meditations that center this time our mind. Now, if you're just jumping in, what you may want to do is drag the indicator bar all the way to the left, because when these exercises are taken out of context, they're not as potent. Now, I'm not the meditation police. I'm not going to show up at your door and pelt you with Nerf balls if you take my advice, crumple it up, and throw them in the dumpster. Just want to give you a heads up. We come to the first of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 5th jhana's sphere of infinite spaciousness, which is the opposite of feeling physically compressed. By mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our mind's ability to see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and the like. So we're shifting gears from coarse thoughts to subtle perceptions. We call them subtle because they're just evolutionarily older. First, our ancestors perceived long before they were able to emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine. As we breathe in, we can silently and mentally recite the verb watch. As we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite the grammatically incorrect phrase, this here mind. We come now to the second of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 6th jhana's sphere of infinite awareness, which is the opposite of feeling mentally compressed. And as a child, I watched a lot of Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck cartoons. And there was one where Daffy Duck is harvesting treasure, and he comes across Aladdin's lamp, and he rubs the lamp, and out comes the genie, and he doesn't want to deal with the genie, so he tries to stuff the genie back into the lamp by jumping on top of the genie's head. And of course the genie responds, "You have desecrated the genie of the lamp," and then hilarity ensues. No one likes to be compressed, including our own mind. Let's play with this exercise. During the inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the verb grin. During the exhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the phrase to this mind. Well, I only explained half of this, sorry. So we get to savor the sixth jhana, sphere of infinite awareness, as we allow our mind to gladden, as towards it we gently smile from the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes. We come to the third of four mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the seventh jhana, sphere of non-graspability, as we allow our minds, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, to tranquilly relax in the most sustainable way. As we breathe in, we can silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic noun mind. As we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite the hyphenated verb relaxing. And last we come to this early morning's final exercise. You know it's the final exercise because there's a little blue smiley face right here. We now come to the fourth of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 8th jhana sphere of acquiescent non-labeling by experiencing the liberating equanimity of our controlling tendencies to shove and reach. Now, they're still there, but we're not being controlled by them. Kind of like when an uncle visits his niece and nephew and they sit on his feet and hug his shins while he wades around the apartment, wondering, where are my niece and nephew? Wandering aloud, I must say. Wondering as he's wandering, if I wish to be pedantic about it. As we breathe in, we can silently and mentally recite the subject, the noun, mind. As we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite the hyphenated object phrase, now freeing. If all we do is silently and mentally play with these words in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation, surprisingly, everything will take care of itself. Allow me to remind you. Well, here's what I'll do. Allow me to remind you that according to neuroscience, our birthright Oopsie, I want to be able to hit my pointer. Our birthright is empathy, but it is often undermined by fear. Fear and empathy are on a teeter-totter. They are mutually exclusive. How do we transcend the fear at the base of our brain, the amygdala, so we can be empathetic and kind in a manner that is spontaneous and uncontrived? Simple. By contemplating and meditating just as we have, we are free ourselves from the tyranny of fear and are able to access our birthright of loving kindness. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window, share this, give this live stream a thumbs up, share this live stream with a friend, or even support this channel on Patreon. Either way, in about 2 1/3 hours, I intend to return to lead today's mid-morning meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy, and if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.